Well, I want to welcome everybody to today's EntreprenHer show. And I am thrilled, as always, to interview my next guest and to introduce her to you. Before I do, though, I want to just say how I am always so honored when I find women who I've either been on their email list or I've found them online, and then we connect, and they're so willing, as is our next guest, to come on the show and just share. So in case I forget to thank you 100 times, Samantha, I want to thank you ahead of time for making time out of your busy day to be with us. So let me tell you formally about our guest. Her name is Samantha Whittaker. Samantha is a savvy public relations director and personal branding and publicity coach that supports and empowers professional women who are finding it difficult to advance in their careers or grow their businesses. Samantha understands the struggles that professional women face working in the corporate sector, and she also has the knowledge and resources to show these women the exact tips and tricks that big brands use to make it easy for audiences to create successful outcomes. Samantha strongly believes that women need to shine more light on their accomplishments, amen, and learn how to use the power of recognition to get ahead. So today we're going to talk about personal branding and that it's okay to stand out. Yay! My favorite topic. So Samantha, welcome.
Hi, Heidi. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really excited about this segment.
Excellent. And I will mention that this is your first time on it as a guest on Blab, and I love to tell people that because of all my guests, only 3 have ever been on a show before, and now a few of them actually have their own shows. So I said, you know what? They'll always remember me as the catalyst to get them started. So,
I mean, this is the most interesting platform. I'm so enthralled already. I'm ready to dive in and play with it once I get off the call with you.
The funny thing is how amazing that it's still free. I mean, I would pay a service for this. Don't listen, Blab, but I mean, I would, because it's such an amazing tool. You could do so many things with this program, and so when you get a chance to do the research, you'll see what I'm talking about. So let's dive right in and talk about how you first became interested in PR and branding, and what inspired you to become a personal branding and publicity coach.
Okay, great. Starting question. You know what? My journey really began in advertising. I actually used to work, when I graduated high school, I didn't know if I was going to go to college. I didn't know what direction I was going in, as most 18-year-old kids. So I started working for the local newspaper in their advertising department. I knew I liked the informal setting of a newspaper. So I was like, why not get a job there? So that's really where my foot got started into this whole field. And then I worked there for about 2 years. And I got actually really, really good at connecting with people because the advertising department was it was an open door policy. People would walk in, they would place their ads, but while they were placing their ads, I would also pitch them stories to go along with their ads. So it converted into editorial. Fast forward, I go to college thinking, I'm going to be a journalist. I take my first PR course and I'm like, nope, this is my chosen field. So that's really how the door got opened. And, like most young, opportunistic college kids, I was like, I'm going to go to New York and I'm going to work for the big agencies. And that didn't happen. I ended up back home, which is the Cayman Islands, and I started working for the government, and I would do their press briefings, the ministerial press briefings, and then announcements to the nation and, press releases. And as much as I loved the work, I didn't like the work environment. So I left there and then went to a law firm. And with the law firm, I was like, okay, this is better because they have, more financial resources to put behind, all of these ideas that I have in my head about how they can do things and expand and grow projects. And what happened was I actually got a really good education on office politics is what really happened. And it was just kind of, again, not the setting where I felt like I could thrive, so I left there. Then I started working for huge companies for like event management. And loved it. I was doing, music festivals, jazz festivals. I got to, connect reporters with celebrities like Robin Thicke, and it was fun. But again, there was just something not right. And it finally clicked to me that I'm not cut out for the corporate world. I love what I do. I love being able to, I call it being the broker. Like, I feel like I'm the broker of the news, because a lot of people don't know how the publicity game works. They think that when they read the newspaper that, whoever's making headlines organically just did something amazing. That's why they're on the front page. They don't realize that it was actually a brokered deal between the publicist and the reporter. The publicist represents the person, whether it be like, I don't know, Kim Kardashian, Cameron Diaz, like whoever. We are the ones who kind of broker the story to the news outlets about them, because we want to get them seen. And I loved it. Like, I loved being this behind the scenes broker. But during my time in corporate, one of the things that I started to notice the most was that it was always the men stepping into these opportunities. The women never did it. And when I started my own firm, I started working with corporate clients specifically because I was just, comfortable with the dynamic. But again, I kept noticing that it was always the men. It was, the C-suite execs, but it was always the men stepping up whenever there were press opportunities. And I started noticing that women really don't know how to step into owning their, their skill set, or owning their greatness, for lack of a better word. We quietly sit in the back corner and we'll work and work and work and work and work, but we won't talk about what we do. And knowing how to promote yourself is such a key part to getting ahead in business that I thought it was just a disservice that women weren't doing it. So in addition to the corporate publicity work that I do with my firm, I've launched a coaching division where I work exclusively with professional and entrepreneurial females who want to get ahead. And I coach them basically how to figure out what it is about them that can make them distinctively unique. And a lot of times that's not like your degrees or your certifications or any of that, because everybody seems to have those. Those are not the things that you bank on. But we work with them to figure out ways that what makes them truly unique, what makes them light up. And then we use that material to position them so that they stand out. And so in a nutshell, that's kind of how my journey has unfolded. And right now, a lot of my time is spent on the coaching side of things, because this is where my passion lies, because I want to help as many women as possible. So I'm taking a step back from the corporate publicity side of things and really diving deep into the coaching side of things to reach as many women as I can.
And I think coaching is probably a lot more fulfilling personally as well.
It is. And for me too, like, when I give, for example, I had a client a few months ago and I got her like a little quarter-page write-up in one of the magazines. You would have thought I just gave her her first child. She was so appreciative and she was so thankful. And I had to say to myself, I never once got a thank you from those CEOs of companies, or you know what I mean? But it was gratifying to know that somebody appreciated it and I made a difference in this person's life.
That's so great. And you're right, because I can remember the first time I ever got any kind of publicity, how I felt. It was just such an amazing feeling of wow. In addition to the people who know and love me recognizing maybe my talents, when other people recognize it, that just really edifies what we do. Mm-hmm. So I want you to go back just a second, because you said something about you find out what's unique about the person and then you create their branding campaign. Can you give us kind of an example of what you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things. Okay, so I think society in general, not even just gender specific, just society in general, we live in a society that tells us that we need to have, certifications and degrees and, all of these things. And those things are great, but the reality is that everybody else is following the same path of getting the same degrees, getting the same, the same training. So realistically, you can't just rely on your skill set anymore. You have to figure out a way to distinguish yourself. Like what makes a person want to work with you? And one of the things that I know to be true throughout humanity, like it doesn't even matter how much time passes and how much we want to say we've evolved past, humans are humans. We want to connect, we want to do business, or we actually just want to spend time with people that we feel connected to.
Right.
And so what essentially the work that I do, the personal branding work that I do, is I figure out like, what is it about you? Like what lights you up, Heidi? Like what about your history? What about your childhood? What about, like as a kid, what did you aspire to be like? And those are the things that I like really dive into, because they tell a story about you. And that story is connection points, like it's goals, because, somebody else may resonate, or they might see themselves in you. So even though, you work in tech and women in commerce, I can find anybody who does tech or women in commerce. But if we have a shared story, now I'm interested in you. Now I'm connected, because now I want to know about Heidi.
Right. Well, I said today at another meeting that I had been an entrepreneur since I was 11, but I was 6. Because I used to carry my brother, or pull my brother around in his little red flyer wagon, and we'd walk door to door in California and collect Coke bottles. And we had the wagon was because we needed a place to put the Coke bottles. My brother was only 2, so he couldn't really walk as fast as me. And it just dawned on me that you're right. We all have a story. And where did you start? And what did you do? And I mean, even though I never aspired to be my own business owner, I always thought I'd be a teacher or an actress. Figured one or the other. From California, I'll be an actress or I'll be a teacher. And I became none of those things. And yet my business revolves around that, because I do a lot of public speaking. And I do a lot of training. So it's funny how we see our lives evolving may not be the exact path as you said when you were talking about corporate America. I've never worked for anybody, but I've worked for a lot of people, meaning I have never had a job per se. I wouldn't even know what to do in a corporate setting. I'd probably get lost or fired. I don't think I'm employable, but that's another story. So I'm always fascinated when I hear women like yourself who've had that experience, because I think it's so wonderful that you've had that and you can see both sides of the coin, where I really kind of have tunnel vision because I've only been an entrepreneur, and I can't relate as well to your story, but I'm always fascinated by it because I can learn from you.
You can learn a lot from me, just because I do have that insight of how to, no, but I'm just saying, like in general, like, not only do I have my personal experience, but I also have the resources of how the big companies do things, and I can bring that insight directly to individuals. So that's kind of like an added bonus of having, figuring out ways to bridge what you have done with what you are currently doing.
Excellent. So great example. So what type of client do you currently work with? I know you mentioned small business, you mentioned business owners or women and corporate, but what's your ideal client look like? And the second part of that question is how do they find out about you and your services? In other words, how do you market to them or get them to say, hey, I need to hire Samantha Whittaker?
Well, I exclusively in the coaching side of things, I do one-on-one coaching work through what I call my instant credibility package. And it's just a packaging and positioning and pricing coaching program. But I exclusively work with women who already have a desire for more. They know they want more and they're ready to step into more. The truth is that if somebody isn't, there yet, they're not an ideal client for me. Because I can't, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make it drink if they're not ready to step into that space. So it's typically women who have had some level of success, like they've already started their firm or their business and they've gone through like the first 2 to 3 years of the setup of the business, or they have put in a few years in corporate America and, they're ready for a bigger promotion or a bigger level, so the readiness factor is there. And so what I do with them, what I do to market with them, I sit down, I actually have a very interesting marketing thought process. I'm like, where is a woman like that? Where would a woman like that hang out? You know, and on her personal time, not even just from her professional time, because I know everybody else is thinking, okay, conferences and seminars. I'm thinking, what does she do on a Saturday? And I survey women, a lot of women who are my ideal target base. Like I will do, I'll go into women's groups and I will do, you know, free speeches or free presentations. But at the end of it, I will actually survey those women and I will ask them questions like, what do you do on a Saturday? And what I find out is like a lot of them are obviously at the hair salon or at the gym. And so those are my key markets for my marketing. Like I'll then go to the hair salons and to the gyms and to, you know, the boutique shops that these women shop at.
That's actually very insightful, because I don't think a lot of people think about that. We're always into the Monday through Friday and go to the networking events. Not me in particular, but I think in general, a lot of people, you know, think like that without thinking. You know, I remember years ago, a friend of mine, Angel Cicerone, she was publisher of the Women's Business Journal that was eventually purchased by the Business Journal itself. You know, that big company across the United States. And she always says, you go where your market is. You don't go to try to find a market. You go where the market is. You hang out with the people. In other words, she always used to say, when you travel first class.
Mm-hmm.
You want those
I agree
kind
that.
of clients. And so that sounds like to me similar to what you're saying. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really important key point for anybody to hear. You know, obviously there are people who are going to market to people based on price. I think basing your business on price sets yourself, in my opinion, up for
I agree.
failure, because then you're always backpedaling and competing.
Yeah.
And trying to get the, you know, fighting for dollars as opposed to for quality and consistency and longevity, I think. So,
Mm-hmm.
So when you start working with a client, Samantha, what is the first thing that you want to know about them?
Well, two things. I want to know, one, like, how do they see themselves right now? You know, how do they view themselves? And secondly, how do they desire to see themselves in the future? And this tells me a lot, because it'll tell me, you know, that there's room, that they're willing, like there's room between where they are and where they want to be, where I can help them. If they don't have an idea of exactly where they want to be, I always question those clients' levels of readiness.
Right. Oh, that's smart. That's a great question to ask. So let's talk about personal branding, because this is really the crux of this conversation. What does that mean, and why is it important?
Okay. So essentially, personal branding represents your value in the market. It more or less is the art of building a brand around you, the individual. And what it really does is increase your perceived value to others. Just like you were just talking about pricing and people who compete on pricing. I'll use the example of, you know, your everyday brand. We can look at Starbucks, or we can even, actually, let's look at water. Next time you're in a supermarket, look on the shelf when you're crossing, you know, the section where all the water bottles are displayed. And if you look at like a bottle of Aquafina, and that price point is, let's say, $1. Then you look at a bottle of like Smart Water. That price point is about $2.79. What's the difference?
Marketing.
Branding. But that's the point. So essentially what personal branding is looking at yourself as a brand and figuring out how to position and package yourself so that you are more valuable, and so that people remember you, and so that people want to work with you off the bat, so that you can, you know, cut down on your time on pushing and peddling and promoting your services, because you're already giving off a vibe that is intriguing people, and they're already paying attention to you, and they already know they want to work with you.
Excellent. Excellent. So let's talk about some of the things that a person needs to do to ensure her personal brand is, number one, understood, number two, relevant, and of course, number three, marketable.
Okay. Well, personal branding really is about looking at yourself and looking at your skill sets, and then creating leverage for yourself. So think of, developing a brand as kind of like a little leverage lever that if you play with it, it'll have huge rewards for you. So my first step is always asking people to develop a personal marketing plan for themselves. And what that means is come up with 1 or 2 concrete goals that you want. Those concrete goals could be, I want to have 5 clients in the next 3 months, or I want to get a significant, I want to get a $10,000 bonus at the end of the year. Okay, so start off there with figuring out what your goal lines are. Then define what your brand is. What sets you apart from others. Figure out a way to infuse who you are and what you like to do with what you do as a business. And then once you figured that out, come up with that's when you move into the actual marketing tactics. That's when you can then look into, the different portals of Facebook or, Google Plus or webinars or even speaking engagements. But I always encourage people to figure out what they want to achieve, and then also figure out a way to figure out what their story is and figure out how they're going to fuse their story with their profession.
Excellent, excellent. I want to backtrack again because we kind of glossed over this, or we didn't go in depth. We just kind of broadly talked about an example. Is there an example of a client that you could give me that maybe here's where she started and here's where she is and here's the brand that you've developed? Is that something you could talk about?
Yeah. I work with a plethora of different clients, but I'll give you the story about Carmen, she's an entrepreneur. She has her own styling and closet cleansing company, and for a while, she was struggling to get clients. She didn't know what to really do to draw in clients besides work. And so what we did was we started to figure out what lights Carmen up, what makes Carmen different. Carmen is a working mom. Carmen has eccentric hair. Carmen loves, to create jewelry on her own. So what we did is that we started pulling those things into her imaging, and we would create these, her headshots. We did a whole photo shoot where her headshots were big hair, big jewelry, just to really make her have presence. And then what I would do is then do story pitches to media outlets about her. I started out with the local media outlets, because I always try to inform people to start with local media outlets first because they already have a footing in that area.
Right.
But ironically, what happened is, she would get local features in the community magazines or whatever, but that eventually led to a full spread in Cosmo, where she's a contributor for, she's a contributor for styling in Cosmo. So literally we just took her from, we took her out of that space where she was always thinking about the to-dos of her job, and we created a brand for her out of, just who she is. And we positioned it and we threw her in the media, and the opportunities just keep rolling in right now for her.
And you know what, can you give us, and that's a really great example. So can you give us some tips for how to get in local media? Because I think that is the best place to start. Yeah. The local media, I know personally, loves to share stories of local successful or on their way to success business owners. So share maybe a few tips about how we can do that.
Yeah. Okay. So this is my fail-proof tip for everybody listening. Okay. So the next time, look for those community publications, those small community publications. And you can always find them at the front of your supermarket, your local supermarket. As you're walking in, there'll be a rack. And some of them might be real estate. Some of them might be lifestyle. Some of them might be Christian life. Pick out whatever resonates to you and is in alignment with you. Go through those magazines, and whenever you see an article that really connects to you about a subject matter, look for the byline, which will follow the article heading. You know, at the top is the heading, and then the byline is the actual reporter's name. Okay. All right. My recommendation then is to reach out to that reporter and then just say to him, hi, I read your article on so-and-so and it really connected with me. I am a local business owner in, you know, ABC around the corner. I provide this and this. If you're ever looking for someone to provide a comment on a similar story, please consider me a resource.
Excellent.
And
that works.
No, it works because people don't realize that media reps, like their job is to find stories. And a lot of times people will come with them with like their own story or, you know, their press release about them, and it's all about them, but they never think about it from the reporter's perspective. So if you can position yourself as an asset to the reporter where you want to help a reporter, you're automatically shooting yourself to the front of the line.
So what are some tips for pitching to reporters?
Don't go at it with, well, first off, let's talk about crafting your story. Business owners always want to talk about them. Okay, right. I need you guys to slow down and backtrack, and you think about it from the perspective of the reader. Okay, what does the reader gain from knowing about your business? What does the reader gain from knowing about your promotion? Like, the truth is nobody cares that you have a promotion on. Reporters know that you have a promotion on, and if that's what you want to promote, buy advertising. If you want editorial, you have to think about it from the perspective of the reader. So always slow down, take out the, this is me verbiage, take all of that out and slow down, simplify it, and be like, what does the reader gain from this information, and write from that perspective. And then secondly, just become a resource for a reporter. Don't always go in there with like your story about like print this. Just say to them, you know, I'm here to help you do your job. If you ever need, you know, some information or some insight into this area, please reach out to me.
Excellent advice. Yeah, I'm not sure what the ratio is anymore, but years ago when we would do publicity pitches for my business, I learned from going to a seminar that your pitches should always be more you, meaning about the other person, and less about me. So that like maybe 80% should be use the verbiage where it's talking about the person reading it, and only 10 to 20% about you, if not less. And I'm not sure if that holds true today.
It still holds true. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, that's never gone away. But a lot of times entrepreneurs will just talk about, you know, themselves. Like, I have this company, I do this, Truth, reporters don't care. Talk about it.
You want to know who you've helped, not what you.
Exactly.
Yeah, true. So let's talk about some publicity strategies. You talked about pitching to reporters and about contacting the people who write the stories. What are some publicity strategies that are working right now that any business owner can use to quickly grow their business or slowly grow their business?
I'm going to start with, well, what I've shared with you so far is really great advice.
Yes.
But in addition to that, I think there's a mindset shift that needs to happen that people need to think about first. Like, you always want to start off with like the Forbes or the Cosmo or, you know, the widely circulated press outlets. That's great, but you know what I mean? You don't underestimate those small local publications, as I've said before, because they can have such great traction for you, and it's way easier for you to get footing into those publications. And also, when you get coverage in those publications, leverage your status by saying you've been featured in these publications. You know, so I always try to tell people to be like, baby step the process. You know, it's great that you want to be in Fortune or you want to be in Entrepreneur magazine. Those are wonderful, attainable aspirations, but they're not going to happen overnight. So start local first, because it's the easiest footing in. You know, get yourself featured and then pitch to Entrepreneur and Success and work your way up that way, because once you've been featured in something, it gives you credibility, and those other bigger outlets will be more interested.
Absolutely. It's funny. You build momentum. Once once someone takes you seriously or recognizes you, it's almost like everybody does then. It's kind of like the actors. If you see people in movies, they're always you see a lot of the same actors, because if Leo DiCaprio was in one movie, now everybody wants him. And now everybody's pitching to him to be in their movie. And that's the same holds true, I think, in business. When everybody wants you when everybody wants you. And so you got to take that first step. Great advice, by the way, Samantha. Thank you. What are some other tips you have to create an effective personal brand?
One of my favorite tips is to pick somebody that you idolize, somebody that you look up to, somebody that you admire, and start researching them online and see, type in their name in Google and then click the images tab and see what types of images come up about them. Look at their headshots. How are they positioning themselves? What are they wearing? Also, another great tip is to set up Google alerts of these people that you admire, and see, what press coverage or what mentions or what is coming in about these people and what's being said. Take note of all of these things, because if you aspire to be like them and they're successful already, there's clearly a formula that's working, and you can pick up pieces of their formula and incorporate it into yourself. And this will still be truly authentic because you've already identified that you align with them and that you resonate with them.
I always tell my clients, and we work out a strategy, but one of the things that I like to tell them is to Google your competition and do Google alerts so that you can see every time and it can drive some people crazy and they get upset. Why am I not? There are all the time. It's because they're working it, whether they're hiring a public relations firm to do it for them, or they're doing it themselves and just have these great connections. Whatever works, but I think that it's good to know when your competition's in the news so that you can see what kind of coverage they're getting. Not saying that you're going to want to do exactly the same thing. So what I hear from you is that you're looking at models, taking best practices and implementing those best practices in your own business.
Yes, sort of, but from a personal branding perspective. I always tell people for their competition, from a publicity standpoint, to set up Google alerts as well. But from a personal branding standpoint, what I'm saying is look for somebody that you idolize. It could be another entrepreneur that you're inspired by. It could be, it could be like somebody that has passed in life. It could be like, a Tony Robbins type figure. Figure out somebody that you aspire to be like. You look at them and you're just inspired and you're like, I wish I had that. I think a lot of people have those, especially women. There's somebody that comes to mind a lot when we're like, for me, there is Lauren Ridinger. I don't know if you've ever heard of her, but she owns Market America. I've never met her, but I'm so inspired by her. I am so inspired by her professionally, her personally, and so whoever that is for you, and you feel like you want to have a similar style of brand, that's when you do research. And so this way it's in alignment with some calling within you already.
Excellent. Great advice. Great advice. So what's been the most surprising part of the work that you do?
Honestly, in the coaching world, it's so touching to see that, you would think that, all I do is provide publicity and personal branding tips. But what I'm really noticing is that I'm helping these women develop confidence in themselves. And when they have this level of confidence, their entire life and other areas of their life really starts to transform. And it's surprising to me because I didn't start out thinking that I would have that kind of effect. But it's really touching to see how much change can come out of having confidence within yourself. And as long as you have somebody who believes in you and can kind of pump you up and get you to that confident level, it's beautiful.
Absolutely. My guest yesterday and I were talking a lot about that. And sometimes we don't see our own worth until other people see it. And I think that that's just great. I want to make a couple of comments, as I haven't even actually formally or out loud verbally welcomed a lot of people. We've had a lot of people joining us. I want to say hi to Hillary and Michael and Frank and Cameron, and I think a couple others. So Eva, thank you. And Frank Clark, coach, mentioned that he is going to be interviewing Peter Shankman. And if anybody in PR knows who that is, he's the founder of Harrow, Help a Reporter Out. It is an amazing resource. So thank you. Christopher's also on the line. And he also said should be a great resource for people trying to understand how to position themselves as an expert. So yes, if you're available, Frank, we'll definitely have to check that out. Unfortunately, I only interview women, but I do like listening to the guys. I've learned a lot from both. My first mentor was my mother, and my second was a man. And I'll tell you what, I learned as much from each of them in different ways. So the man was a business owner, as was my mother. And, you know, it's great to have different perspectives and then take the best from both. So, Frank, thank you for your comments. And Hillary, welcome. All right. Well, we're almost out of time. I can't believe we've done so well. You've covered information. So let's talk about some of the services that you offer clients, Samantha.
Okay, well, as I mentioned, I only work with women, and this is through my one-on-one instant credibility coaching program, which is a 6-month-long coaching program where I show you, like, step-by-step how to position, package, and price yourself, and also walk you through the whole publicity spectrum and how to leverage publicity coverage once you've gotten it. However, if that's not a good fit for everybody, I also have an audio training pack where it's 15 in-depth interviews on like different subtopics. Like one might be how to write a press release, one might be how to give a good interview. So that's available on my website, SamanthaWhittaker.com, for a quick purchase if that's something more in line with people. But those for right now are the only 2 services that we're currently offering for people to work with me.
Excellent. So I'm just writing that down, SamanthaWhittaker.com. Are there any other links you'd like to share with people? I put SamanthaWhittaker.com. Yeah. And if you have a direct link to any of your programs, please feel free to put them in the live chat area so that we have them on the record. I have them later. Okay. And read it out loud too, so that it'll be part of the recording, because the audio portion of this, people won't be able to actually see your beautiful face and watch us, but they can hear it. So I like to make sure it's in the audio too.
Perfect. Well, I also have a 3-part video series on how to position yourself as an expert, and it's completely free and it's downloadable. And so it's a unique URL. It's a standalone URL, and it's called Rise to the Top Samantha Whittaker, and Whittaker is WHITTAKER.com. So risetothetop.SamanthaWhittaker.com, and you guys can easily just enter your email address and get access to that 3-part video series. It outlines actually 5 of my favorite tips on how to position yourself as an expert.
Excellent. And you made a good point. Samantha Whittaker. Now on here, it looks like there's only 1 T, so maybe I'm just not reading correctly.
It's 2, but yeah, it's the British spelling. But most people, when they hear Whittaker, will spell it with 1, but it's 2 T's.
So risetothetop.SamanthaWhittaker.com. Okay, I'm putting that in the chat as well. So what is the one bit of advice that you'd like to give to our audience that you've not yet talked about?
Start with the end in mind in everything that you do. Excellent. Yeah. Start, because a lot of times, you know, you just will dive right into something and then we'll be like, well, working. What am I working for again? So start with the end in mind. Before you do anything in your business or, you know, you take a job, what do you want? Figure out what you want from that experience.
Excellent. Excellent. So where do you get your creative ideas? In other words, do you have a process that, to help you come up with ideas, not only for your own business, but also for your clients?
Honestly, it's not like a formalized process. It's just kind of me. I listen. I walk around, I walk my dog, and I talk to people. I'll listen to people. I was just in line at Starbucks before this interview, and there was these 2, high school girls having conversation, and I'm just listening. And I'm just thinking about the problems that they're going to face. And in my head, I'm like drafting all of this stuff. And so
I love it.
I pay attention to my surroundings, and I pick up nuggets all the time just by listening. So I actually do carry like a little black reporter's notebook in my purse with me at all times, and I'll just scribble something down. And, you know, it might turn out to be an e-newsletter topic next week, who knows? But I'm opening, like I open myself up to just listening to what others have to say and ingesting it and figuring out how it applies to my business or to my life.
Excellent. Excellent advice. And I have the same thing. I have little notepads everywhere I go, including my bedsides, beside my bed, because sometimes I'll wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and have this brainstorm idea and I need to write it down. I used to try to record it, but I would drop the recording on the ground. Then I couldn't find it. I had to turn the light on and my poor husband would wake up. So now I don't do that anymore. I just jot it and I write in the dark. But it usually comes out okay. I can read it even if no one else can. So you're right. You have to carry, you know, I think that we always try to think high tech, but sometimes low tech works. You know, you just have to remember what it is you wanted that you were trying to say when you wrote those notes down.
And inspiration is everywhere, you know, like I'll just be listening to an audio recording in my car and I'll have the same experience where I'll like grab the pen and I'm trying to write, like just scribble it down so I remember it without, you know, without like taking my hand off the wheel. So I'm there with you. Inspiration is everywhere. Just be open to it. That's all.
Absolutely. I love taking walks. So what books are you currently reading or would you recommend?
I'm actually currently reading Fascinate by Sally Hogshead. And this, no, this book is all about, if you guys are interested in learning how to position yourself as, you know, a premium brand or just how to, you know, fascinate audiences, this is a great book. She analyzes like brands like Chanel and just talks about how they've created the essence of, you know, or the exclusiveness of their brand, but it's really simple tactics that anybody can apply to themselves.
Great book. And I will definitely I put that in the chat as well. So in addition to your own, what websites can you simply not live without, Samantha?
There is one, and this website trumps everything else out there. And it's
Don't
Google.
tell me it's Google.
It is Google. It is Google.
Everybody says Google. I need to qualify that question. Say besides Google too. Do you have any other that you use online religiously? You know, any kind of
Google?
Online?
Google is it for me, really and truly. Like I feel like I can do pretty much anything with Google.
Excellent. Well, there we have it. Another point for Google is even though they don't really need it, right?
Yeah.
But I've heard some great things. They're doing some really great things. They're actually giving away a lot of grants. I want to put this on because I heard this today. They're actually giving marketing pay-per-click grants to nonprofit businesses or nonprofit organizations, and they can range from $10,000 to $40,000 a month in pay-per-click free advertising that Google's giving away. So I wanted to put that here for anybody who's either involved in a nonprofit or has a nonprofit that's listening to this now or in the future. Be sure and check that out, because I guess they're just making so much money they can give all that stuff away. And I'm glad for them, because I too love Google. But I actually want to say Bing has become my search engine of choice. I've really learned, and I guess as I'm a very visual person, and Bing is more visual for me. So I really love Bing, but they're both great, and Google definitely number one, absolutely. What's next for Samantha Whittaker?
What's next for me? Well, right now we're working on putting together an in-person workshop series, and we're going to be doing it across four markets. So I'm looking to host it in Miami, where I'm currently at, Grand Cayman, London, and then New York. So my hope, we're formally like putting it together, but my hope is for the remainder of the year to kind of be facilitating these workshops in addition to the coaching work that I have. And I will say this just in closing, in the event that anybody out there listening is called to work with me, we actually do have 2 spots open. So if anybody wants to slide on in, feel free to reach out to me.
and that leads me to the next question. How can they get in contact with you? Yeah. What's the best way?
Well, of course, there's my website. But in addition to that, you guys can email me directly at coaching at freshimagepr.com. So that's coaching at freshimagepr.com. But if you just want to like direct access to me, definitely feel free to reach out to me informally or fill out a slot to talk about coaching through my website. I'm here and ready to help you out as best as I can.
Excellent. I just put that down in the chat. Coaching at freshimage.com.
PR.com.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me fix that. Forget that, everybody. It's coaching at freshimagepr.com. Maybe would you mind typing it over in the chat? Yeah. I want to answer Frank's question while I can. Frank, I don't know what the link is, but if I do find it out, I'll be doing probably a post somewhere on Facebook. So you can find me at Heidi Richards on Facebook or on LinkedIn or on Twitter. I will be sharing that information. Maybe if I find out before my next guest, which will be next week on the 25th, I'll be interviewing Ellen Finkelstein, and she'll be talking about how to create impactful presentations. She's a PowerPoint expert and does lots with presentations and has for the last 20 some years. So she'll be really fascinating. If anybody who does any kind of formal presentations using any medium similar to PowerPoint, I think you want to be there, because I know I do a lot of that when I'm doing my professional speaking. So that'll be next week on the 25th, I believe, at 4 p.m. But you can just go to the EntreprenHerShow.com and you can see all of the upcoming interviews. I think there's 3 or 4 I have about 8 scheduled. But the way that Blab works is you can only actually put them up there until a certain date. So when I posted all of the new shows, it only allowed me to post up to May 2nd. So now we have a bunch of people in May and June. So we'll be, as we are able, we try to do 4 or 5 at a time instead of doing 1 at a time. So it's the EntreprenHerShow.com. Or if you just follow me, you'll find me because it's my show. And Samantha, I just want to say thank you so much.com. EntreprenHer Show, not her show. I like her show, though. I tried to get that one. It wasn't available. Anyway, Samantha, thank you so much. Oh, hello from Vancouver, XL Radio. Well, we have a couple more minutes, so I wanted to say thank you. If anybody does, Samantha, do you have time to take any questions?
Of course. Yeah. I'm going to need you to facilitate because I'm learning my way to navigate Blab.
That's fine. No, I'll ask the questions out loud that people post. So if anybody has a question for Samantha, feel free to post it in the live chat. We do have a few extra minutes. I find most of the time when I do these interviews, I take up all the time with my questions. And often people have said to me, gosh, you asked all the questions I wanted to ask. I try to think a little bit ahead, but I need to leave a little bit of room for people. So XL Radio, thank you again. Oh, look at that. And here she wrote, you can book a free breakthrough call with me by selecting the time here at vcita.com, blah, blah.
That's actually my access to my calendar. So if you guys want to even if you're not interested in coaching and you just want some pointers from me, feel free to book a slot. I give away free breakthrough sessions so we can talk one-on-one and I can give you pointers.
Wonderful. And Samantha, I'm going to be following you religiously now because you're in Miami and I'm in Fort Lauderdale.
Are you really?
I am. And I do a thing called the Golden Mouse Awards. I'm going to give another little plug. And we honor women once a year at our Golden Mouse Award in Fort Lauderdale. It's Tri-County, so we honor people like Felicia Hatcher. I don't know if you know who she is. Mm-hmm. She is she's had a company, popsicle company. Oh my gosh, she's going to kill me. And I know her so well. Well, Nancy Allen from Women's Business Development Council in Miami. There's just so many. So we have women in the Tri-County area that we honor for what they do in the community and in business and to help women. So you'll definitely be hearing from me about the Golden Mouse Award.
Yes.
Especially since you're local and so many other things. So I just wanted to say thank you again, Samantha Whittaker, for joining us today. Everybody, be sure and visit her online at freshimagepr.com, samanthawhitaker.com, and all of those other links that you've got over here. You have a question before we go? Go ahead. Says she has a question. XL Radio has a question.
Hi, XL Radio.
Radio. I forgot to say goodbye to Frank. So again, while we're waiting for the question, I'll just mention that our next show is next week at the 25th at 4 p.m. here on the EntreprenHer Show, and it'll be all about how to create impactful presentations. Question in the chat area. Okay. What is your advice for starting up into getting PR services?
For looking into, what is your advice for startups? Oh, for startups. For
startups looking. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
No, I had to look at it. I'm sorry, XL Radio. Sorry. I'm new to Blab, so I don't know exactly. Anyhow, not the point. For startups, okay, I would say if it's your company, start up. Give a story about what your journey, like what made you start this startup. I would definitely dig into, and a story about the real reason why you started a company. It can't be just, I thought it was a good way to make money. What exactly drove you to start it? Is it, making a difference? Is it bringing your message to a certain type of audience? Find an angle that you can angle why you started your company. And then that would be a good starting point for you.
Excellent advice. Well, we are now out of time. So I want to say again, thank you, Samantha.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the great question. And we will be talking soon. I'm sure, again, this is Heidi Richards-Mooney, the EntreprenHer Show. I'm founder of Women in E-Commerce. Be sure and check us out. And also we have a magazine called We Magazine for Women, which we love. And we love to feature women. We feature women everywhere. So again, Samantha, thank you. Our guest today was Samantha Whittaker, excellent, amazing PR and personal branding coach. So thanks again. Have a great day, everyone.
You're welcome. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.